Somewhere in the Orkney Islands, around the year 1150, a group of Norse warriors broke into an ancient burial mound, a tomb older than memory. They were looking for treasure. On the stone walls of that chamber, they carved graffiti, the same thing bored men have done for thousands of years. And in those runes, casually, almost offhandedly, they wrote something that historians are still arguing about today. Her sons, they were bold. Scarcely ever were there such tall men of their hands. Her sons. Not his, not Ragnar's, hers. Whoever these Vikings were, whatever century they lived in, they knew. They understood that behind the greatest dynasty of warriors the Norse world ever produced was a woman. Her name was Aslaug. And this is her story. It begins not with glory, but with greed. In the rolling hills of Norway, a man named Heimer is travelling. He looks like a pauper, a wandering harp player, hunched and slow, clutching an enormous instrument to his chest. He asks for shelter at a farmhouse owned by two peasants, Åke and Gryma. They let him in. And that night Åke watches the old man sleep. He watches the harp. And something gnaws at him. No wandering musician travels with a harp that large, that heavy. There has to be treasure inside. He tells his wife, Gryma, and Gryma makes a decision that will echo across centuries. She talks her husband into murder. They kill Heimer while he sleeps. They drag the heart open. They reach inside, hearts hammering, expecting gold. What they find instead is a child. A little girl, wide-eyed, watching them. They have just killed the man who was sworn to protect her. They have just made themselves the guardians of the most extraordinary secret in the Norse world, because this child is no peasant girl. She is the daughter of Sigurd the Dragon Slayer and the Valkyrie Brynhildr. She is descended from Odin himself, carrying in her blood a lineage that runs back to the beginning of everything Norse mythology holds sacred. They name her Kráka, crow. And then, whether from guilt or fear or cunning, they hide her. They rub tar into her skin to dull her beauty. They dress her in shapeless clothes. They bury the secret so deep that for years no one comes looking. But you cannot hide what is written in the blood. Years pass. Kráka grows. And one day the ships of Ragnar Lodbrok anchor near the shore. His men go to cook, and there by the water they see her, and they forget everything. Every pot boils dry, every loaf burns. They stand and stare. Ragnar summons this woman. But he's no fool, a girl this striking, appearing from nowhere, claiming peasant blood. He wants to test her. So he sends a message. Come to me, but not dressed and not undressed, not eating and not fasting, not alone and not in company. An impossible riddle, a trap designed to expose pretenders. Kráka arrives wrapped in a fishing net, biting an onion, with a single dog at her heel. Not dressed, not undressed, not eating, not fasting, not alone, not in company. Every condition answered perfectly. Ragnar is not just charmed, he is struck. Because this is not the wit of a peasant. This is the intelligence of someone whose mind moves faster than other people's words. He marries her. And for a time, that is enough, or so he thinks. Here is where the story gets interesting. Here is where Aslaug steps from legend into something that modern science cannot easily explain away. After their wedding night, Aslaug tells Ragnar something strange. Wait 3 nights before we lie together again. If you do not, the son we create will suffer for it. Ragnar does not wait. He is a king. He is impatient. He is, as the sagas put it with characteristic Viking bluntness, too eager. 9 months later, a boy is born. His name becomes Ivar the Boneless. The sagas describe him as a child born with only cartilage where bone should have been, a child who could not walk the way other children walked, a child who would have to be carried, sometimes by his own brothers, into battle. And yet, Ivar the Boneless becomes the most feared commander in the Viking world. He leads the great heathen army into England in 865 AD. He destroys kingdoms. His name appears in the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, a hostile source written by the people he was destroying, and they still cannot hide their awe of him. Here is what historians find remarkable. Ivar's condition, described across multiple independent sources written centuries apart, is medically consistent. Osteogenesis imperfecta, brittle bone disease, is a real hereditary condition. It can be passed through maternal lineage. It can be severe, preventing normal movement while leaving the mind completely intact. The saga writers didn't know the word genetics, but they knew what they saw. And what they saw, a brilliant, crippled, terrifying commander, they explained the only way they could. His mother warned. His father didn't listen. For years, Ragnar keeps Kráka as his queen, but his advisors whisper, his jarls murmur. She is nobody, a peasant woman, they say. A king of Ragnar's stature should marry royalty. And then Aslaug speaks. She tells him her real name. She tells him her real lineage. Sigurd Fafnersbane, Brynhildr the Valkyrie, the Volsung line that connects her to the gods themselves. But Ragnar is sceptical. Words are easy. Prove it, he says. And she says, our next son will be born with a serpent curled in his eye. Months later, a boy is born. They look at his eye, and there it is, a mark in the iris, a snake-like ring circling the pupil. He is named Sigurd Snake-in-the-Eye, and Ragnar never doubts her again. This detail, the mark in Sigurd's eye, appears across sources that had no reason to coordinate. Multiple sagas written by different writers in different centuries all describe the same specific physical characteristic of the same child. A coloboma, a sectoral heterochromia, a real genetic phenomenon, rare enough to be remarkable, consistent enough to be documented. Aslaug didn't just tell Ragnar who she was. She let her children's bodies do the talking. And then, because this woman had apparently not done enough, she goes to war. When Ragnar's older sons are killed by the Swedish king, Aslaug is the one who demands vengeance. Not for her sons. These boys were Ragnar's children by his first wife. They are not hers. She cries for them anyway. The sagas say she cried blood. She marshals 10 warships. She changes her name from Aslaug, the queen, to Randalin, a name rooted in the word for shield. She is no longer a wife waiting at home. She is something older, something the Norse would have recognised immediately. A woman stepping into the skin of a warrior. Her own son Ivar refuses to let her sail. He sends her overland with the cavalry instead, either out of protection or out of the knowledge that his mother on horseback at the head of an army is more terrifying than she would be on a ship. She goes, anyway. They win. So was she real? Here is what we can say with confidence. Her sons were real. Ivar the Boneless, Bjorn Ironside, Sigurd Snake-in-the-Eye, Halfdan Ragnarsson. These are not legend. These are documented, independently verified, historically attested figures. The people they conquered wrote about them. The kingdoms they broke kept records. The Maeshowe Inscription, those words carved in stone by real Vikings in the 12th century, does not say Ragnar's sons. It says her sons. A mother significant enough to define a dynasty even 200 years after her lifetime. The physical details of her children, Ivar's boneless condition, Sigurd's marked eye, appear across independent, non-coordinating sources. These are not the embellishments of a single romantic storyteller. These are recurring, specific medical characteristics being passed down through a lineage. There is no DNA, no grave, no confirmed remains. But the sons whose blood she gave them changed the world, and the world, in its way, remembered her. 2 mistakes. 2 moments where men made decisions that would echo for 1,000 years. Oika and Grima, who killed a man for gold and found a girl instead, and raised her, unknowingly, into a queen. Ragnar Lodbrok, who could not wait 3 nights, and gave the world Ivar the Boneless. History is full of men who are remembered for what they built. Aslaug is something rarer. She is remembered for what she made of others. Her sons carried her blood across England, Ireland, France and Russia. They ceded kingdoms, they broke thrones. They carved their names so deeply into the medieval world that we are still tracing the lines today. And somewhere in the Orkney Islands, in a burial mound older than the Viking age itself, 12 words survive. Her sons, they were bold. Not his. Hers.